Hello friends, welcome to an academy. Right now we are going to start this new course and the title of the course is Comprehensive Understanding of Delhi Sultanate, the Bahmani Kingdoms and Vijayanagara Empire. The course is presented to you by Nithin Kunneparambil, that's me. I've done my masters from IIT Kharagpur. I did my BTech from Cochin University. My achievement include having appeared in the CSE interviews in the first attempt last year. I also have 3.5 years of corporate experience and 2 months of teaching experience from the past 2 months. The things which I love doing is learning languages, I love playing chess, and also I enjoy Carnatic music. Please follow me on the link given below. The objective of this course would be to understand and learn the medieval Indian history, and needless to say, the ultimate aim of getting high marks in prelims and the mains examination. Now let's see how the lessons are arranged in this course. The first one would be to understand the Arabic and the Turkish invasion in India. We'll be speaking about the Mohammed bin Qasim. We'll be speaking about Ghors. We'll be speaking about Mahamud of Ghazni. Next, we'll be speaking about how the Delhi Sultanate has been established. We'll speak about the rulers like Aibak, Qutubuddin Aibak, Iltutmish, Balban, Alauddin Khalji, Khalji. We'll talk about Tughlaq's Ghiyazuddin Tughlaq, Mohammed Bin Tughlaq, Firoz Shah Tughlaq. We'll be speaking about the Sayyids, Lodis, and finally we'll be coming to Mughals. And that's where we'll draw a line. And simultaneously, we'll also speak about the other rulers like the Bahmani Sultanate of Deccan, also the most famous Vijayanagara kingdom of the south. And needless to say, the courses on An Academy is absolutely free. But if you would like to make a volunteer contribution, you're free to do that by clicking the contribute button. Now, why would you do this? This would really motivate the An Academy educators like me to come up with better and more engaging courses. And also, it's more like a token of appreciation for the work that we do, isn't it? So please do contribute. And now, who would be the target audience? It would be the UPSC CSE aspirants and any other person who would love to know about the medieval Indian history. Also, the people who are preparing for exams like CAPF, CMS, CDS, and any other government exam like SSC, stuff like that. Thank you for listening. Hello, people. So let's start with our course. And this is the first lesson. And the lesson's name is Arabs, Ghaznavids, and the Ghorid invasions in India. The course is presented by myself, Nithin Kunneparambil, and these are my details. An Academy courses are free, of course, but then if you want to contribute, please do that by clicking the contribute button below. Or you can also follow me on the link given below. Okay, before we start this whole course, let me ask you this very fundamental few questions. How many of you love biryani or pulao? Or how many of you have been wonderstruck by the beauty of Taj Mahal? Or how many of you enjoy the graceful movement of Kathak? Or how many of you sing along the Sufi musical numbers of A.R. Rahman? If answer to any of this one question, or all of them is yes, then this is a course indeed for you. Sit back and enjoy, and the history of sultans is on the way. So often we do hear about the Islamic invasion, but I think it's a tad a bit too cruel to bracket the whole cultural space into one term called as Islamic invasion. Because the Arabs are different, the Turks are different, the Iranians are different, the Afghanis are different, the Central Asian tribes are altogether a different league. So calling them as an Islamic invasion is very cruel. So the first instance where the Arabic invasion is happening in India is happening in the north, and that's in Sindh. So this person's name is very important. His name is Mohammed bin Qasim, who had defeated Raja Dahir of Chach. Now, why is this particular event so important? I'll tell you one instance. I was listening to a very popular video on YouTube, and there was a small kid from Pakistan who was claiming himself to be a descendant of Mohammed bin Qasim. But have you noticed, in India, no one claims so. Now, this is the distinction between Indo and Pak. So the Pakistani people identify themselves not as a South Asian, rather they claim themselves to be descendant of Mohammed bin Qasim. So this is a very popular notion which is there in Pakistan. So to understand the cultural issues between Pakistanis and Indians, a clear understanding of this history is very important. Okay, let's go much into the details of this Arabic invasion in Sindh. Let's see the impacts. The first thing is the language Sindhi has been written in Arabic script afterwards. Large number of Sindhis also converted to Islam. If you see, many scholars from India were taken to Arab countries to disseminate the knowledge that we have acquired over ages. Now, this is a space where a cultural exchange is happening, right? So now you have Arabs who are learning numerals, even though it is called as Arabic numerals. To be very fair, it is the Indian numerals. They also learn chess, our shatranj, and then they also learned our mathematics, our geometry, our grammar, everything they took from India. At the same time, we were not at loss either because we learned Unani, we learned geography, we learned history. History has been like Indians have been the worst historians. They never recorded. We never recorded our history properly. All we read is from the foreign accounts, right? Okay, so for the first time, we learned history from the Arabs. We also learned chemistry. Now, this is about the Arabic invasion. Now, let's talk about Turkish invasion. But before delving into Turkish invasion per se, let's understand who Turks were. Now, Turks were these tribes who convert to Islam. They were martial tribe, as in like they used to have fratricidal fighting. They were like ferocious warriors. They were merchants. They were amazing craftsmen. They had settled in Iran-Afghanistan border before coming to India. This would mean that even before coming to India, they were Iranized. What do you mean by Iranized? Now, when you come to the history of the Sultanate rulers in India, you'll see the official language is Persian. Now, where did Persian come from? A Turkish ruler. This is the point where they get Persian from. And if you see the empires that these Turks built, they built in Afghanistan. For example, there were few rulers, Alauddin, Subuktigin. These people, they are all great empire builders and who are based out of Afghanistan. And one important personality that we cannot miss is Mahamud of Ghazni. Now let's talk about Mahamud of Ghazni. Why is he so important? He is important because he attacked India for 17 times. 17 times, my friend, 17 times. Now, why did he attack India? I mean, was he in love with India or like what was it? He attacked because he wanted to plunder. His major plundering was in like 1025 to 1026 when he raided the Somnath temple. Now, this could be interpreted in 2-3 different ways. But one popular thing which has always been percolated here is that he was a Muslim ruler and he was so uncomfortable with the Hindu temples. That's why he raided. That's not true. In that case, he should have gone and attacked some capital cities. No, right? Rather, he attacked Somnath temple. By Somnath temple because it was a soft target and Somnath temple had a lot of gold and silver in it. So he used to raid all of this. There were like many temples on the way from his capital to Somnath temple. He didn't attack any of those temples because he didn't have any gold or silver. So the understanding is that he attacked Somnath temple just to take the gold and silver from this place and take it back home. Now, if you understand the Ghaznavid invasion, what is its significance in Indian history? If one asks, there's only one answer, that the history of plunder. There's nothing much more that Mahamud of Ghazni has to offer to India. But what another thing which stands apart is the historian that he brought along with him, and his name is Abu Rahman al-Beruni, or al-Beruni in short. He is the author of this book, Tehqiq-e-Hind. Now, why is Tehqiq-e-Hind important? Let's see. Al-Beruni, he was an exceptional scholar. He came all the way from West Asia to India and went to Varanasi. Why is Varanasi important? Varanasi was the cultural center for learning Sanskrit. A lot of religious studies. Even to date, everyone goes to Varanasi to learn Veda and take Upanayanam and many more things, right? So that's why Varanasi is important. So he came all the way to Varanasi to learn Vedas and different Hindu texts. And he learned Sanskrit. He became especially good in Sanskrit. He wrote this book, Tehqiq-e-Hind, which is considered as a mirror to the 11th century India. Now, why is this book so important? Because it speaks about Brahmins, it speaks about untouchability, it speaks about the time measurement in India, it speaks about Indian festival, it speaks about Indian climate, and many more things. All that we understand about the 11th century India is through this book, what Al-Beruni wrote. Now let's come to the more important one. And he was Shahabuddin Muhammad Ghori. He was from Afghanistan. He attacked Multan. Why is he so important? Because he fought two important battles in this place called as Tarain. That was 1191. He fought a battle of first battle of Tarain against Prithviraj Chauhan, where he lost, and 1192 he fought second battle of Tarain against Prithviraj Chauhan, which he won. Now, Prithviraj Chauhan is a very controversial figure when it comes to the history of India, because many popular serials in Hindi or many short stories in India in Hindi has been propagating this story that Prithviraj Chauhan was blinded by Muhammad Ghori, and then he was taken back, and then he did the Shabd Bediban and he killed Muhammad Ghori. But historically, that is wrong, because we have numismatic evidence. Now, what is numismatic evidence? Numismatic evidence is the evidence that you get out of coins. Now, you have coins. On one side, you had Muhammad Ghori, and the other side, you have Prithviraj Chauhan. That means Prithviraj Chauhan was forced to become a feudatory of Muhammad Ghori, right? Now, later he retaliated, then he was killed. But we also know about this battle of Chandwar, which Muhammad Ghori fought against Jayachand. But what is more important for us is, before leaving to his, back to his capital in Afghanistan, Muhammad Ghori appointed 3 governors in India. The first one is Qutubuddin Aibak, who was the governor of Ajmer, Lahore, the Delhi region. That basically means the north of India, right? And then you have Nasiruddin Kabacha, who was made the governor of Multan. Then you have Ikhtiaruddin Khalji, who was made the governor of Bengal. Now, why is this person important? Because he is the same person who set fire to the Nalanda University. Now, let's see a few words why he left his slaves here. Now, this is very famous words by Muhammad Ghori himself. He says, "Other monarchs may have 1 son or 2 sons. I have thousands of sons, my Turkish slaves, who will be the heirs of my dominions, and who, after me, will take care to preserve my name in the Kutba through these territories." So basically, he left his legacy through his slaves. So now we understand how important slaves were to this Turkish ruler, right? Now, if you basically see summing up the timeline, it would be the Arab invasion, which happened something around 700, right? Then you have in 1000 AD, you have a Ghaznavite invasion, and 1200, let's say, we have Ghurids. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next class. Hello and welcome to an academy. We are dealing with our course on comprehensive understanding of Delhi Sultanate, Bahmani Kingdom, and Vijayanagara Empire. And this is the second lesson, which is the establishment of Sultanate under Aibak and Iltutmish. The course is presented to you by Nithin Kunneparambil, that is me. As you know, the courses in an academy are free of cost, but if you think you can, this courses are helping you in any sense, please do feel free to contribute. You can also follow me in the link given below. Now, before delving more into Aibak and Iltutmish, let's have a quick recap of what had happened in the last lecture. We had seen about the Ghorid invasion. We had seen the governors of Muhammad Ghori. Can you recall who they are? The first one is Qutubuddin Aibak, who ruled in the plains of Delhi, Punjab, Ajmer, and in Bengal, who was it? Yes, that's right. In Bengal, it was Ikhtiaruddin Khalji, and in the Multan region, you had Kabacha, right? In 1206, Muhammad Ghori, after he meets his tragic death, somebody kills him. Qutubuddin Aibak proclaims his independence, and he established the Sultanate of Delhi. So even before getting in closer details of Qutubuddin Aibak, let's see the skeleton of how the Delhi Sultanate looks like. So this is it. The Delhi Sultanate, even though we consider them as a homogeneous chunk, there are 5 different dynasties who rule it. The first one is the Mamluks, or who is also called as the slave dynasty. Then you have the Khaljis. Then you have the Tughlaqs. Then you have the Sayyids. Then you have the Lodhis. Now, how do you remember them in order? So I think you should have all seen the mnemonic lecture by Roman Saini himself. But then I also have my own weird way of memorizing it. So I always remember the slave person who's making khichdi, and without giving me, he took it to Sri Lanka. So a slave is there, and K for Khalji, T for Tughlaqs, S for Sayyids, and L for Lodhis. Right? So these are the 5 dynasties in the Delhi Sultanate. Okay, now let's come to Qutubuddin Aibak. So the importance of Qutubuddin Aibak is that he establishes the Delhi Sultanate in the year 1206. He's said to be an expert in Quran, He also constructed two important buildings. The first one is Alauddin Ka Chopra and second one is Quwwatul Islam Mosque. Even though these are Turkish rulers who are constructing it, these were constructed out of the broken bricks and other materials that they found after destroying temples. So the architecture, you cannot say it's a very clear Turkish architecture. But then he built the first tower of Qutub Minar. Now Qutub Minar is the symbol of Turkish victory in India. Now why is it? Because this is the thing which they're constructing indigenously. And why Qutub Minar? Whom is it dedicated to? Is it dedicated to Qutubuddin Aibak himself? No, that's a very big mistake. It is dedicated to Khwaja Qutubuddin Bhaktiar Kaki. We'll be seeing about him when we're discussing the Sufi movement a while later. He's a very famous Sufi saint and he's also the disciple of Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti. Okay, that's about Qutubuddin Aibak. But what happened to him? He was trying to play polo and he fell from the horse while playing polo and he met with a tragic death. And his rule came to an end in the year 2010. That's just 4 years, right? What a sad ending. So again, the successor of his was one Iltutmish, who was the governor of Badaयूं. He was another slave. You remember this quotes by Muhammad Ghori that we discussed the other lecture, right? So slaves generally become the successor because slaves were considered as good as sons. Now let's speak about Iltutmish. Now Iltutmish, even though Aibak is considered as the founder of slave dynasty, the proper sense, the one who establishes it is Iltutmish. He made Delhi his capital, right? And then he is also considered the real founder of Sultanate. Now, during his time, the empire reached its maximum zenith. How is it? It's expanded from Sindh to Bengal, then from Himalayas to India. That means it's a very big empire. The last time India had seen such a big empire was under Harshavardhana. Now, please tell me, which dynasty did Harshavardhana belong to? If your answer is Vardhana dynasty, then I would say it's a very big wrong. Because the dynasty's name is Pushyabhuti dynasty, right? Okay, now moving further ahead. Now, what did Iltutmish do? Now, instead, Iltutmish didn't per se trust the nobility in India. So, what did he do? He brought a whole huge new nobility from Persia and Afghanistan itself. So that's why in the first time in history of India, there's a huge influx of nobles. Usually what happens, the local people are made feudatories and then they do it, right? So instead, now we have a huge migration towards east. So think these people are the ones who are used to Baghdad and all these great cities of Western Asia. Now when they're coming to Delhi, they're going to urbanize this city, right? So their contribution to Delhi is very huge, man. So these group of nobles were called as Chalisa. They're also called by the name Turkani Chahalgani. Now why this name Chalisa? Chalisa were the 40 nobles, right? Even though they were not 40 in number exactly, they were called as Chalisa. Now with these Chalisa is how Iltutmish is going to manage his empire. Okay, so these are the people who are going to rule the empire for Iltutmish. Now another important point is that he sends Mansur to Khalifa. Now what is this Mansur? So Mansur is the money that any Islamic ruler gives to the Khalifa. Khalifa is a religious and the political head of all the Muslims in the world. Okay, so now what Iltutmish does, being a very smart politician that he is, he sends Mansur to Khalifa and Khalifa accepts the Islamic rule in India. That's how a slave like Iltutmish is going to get credibility in a place like India. So another very important thing, contribution of Iltutmish in India is a system called as Iqtidari system. Now what is Iqtidari system? That is what we are going to see in the next slide. Now Iqtidari system, Iqta is just a measure of land. How you select 10 acres of land, like 100 acres of land, or probably you can say a state or a country. Similarly, Iqta is a very huge measure of land. Now each Iqtas were subdivided into shiks. Shiks were subdivided into parganas. Parganas were further subdivided into gaons. Now each of this unit of land was associated with one person who should take care of it. For example, a Iqta was always taken care by a person called as Iqtidar. A shik was taken care not by Shikdar, rather it is taken care by a person called as Shikdar-e Shikdaran. Pargana was taken care by a person called as Shikdar, and Gao was taken care by a person called as a person whose position was Chaudhry, right? So this is the revenue administration, and probably we'll also see how the military administration happens, how, because each of these people were supposed to keep a certain amount of horses and army people ready, and they'll be called upon in the case of war. Okay, now let's also think about the administration, how Iltutmish tried to rule the empire. So he was a very powerful ruler. If you've seen the timeline, it is 1210 to 1236. That's roughly 26 years of rule by one single king. That means he got ample time and power to, restore the glory and power of the kings. Now what he did is that he established a very vast range of ministers, and his cabinet was called as Majlis-e-Khalwat. If you see the Iranian parliament, even today is called as Majlis, right? So Majlis-e-Khalwat, he is the cabinet of the Sultan, and the very important ruler person in the Majlis-e-Khalwat will be Wazir. Have you seen how Pakistani media refers to their president? It is Wazir-e-Azam, right? So Wazir is the prime minister and the finance minister. Next would be Mir-e-Insha. Mir-e-Insha is something which is corresponding to our Ministry of External Affairs. Mir-e-Arz corresponding to the army administration. Qazi-ul-Quzat, that is the chief justice. So this name is very common, even these days it's been used. Qazi has something to do with law. Sadr-us-Sudur, when you hear the Sadr, Sudur and all, make sure that it has something to do with the religion. So this is the religious endowments to the madrasas. So it is Wazir, Mir-e-Insha, Mir-e-Arz, Qazi-ul-Quzat and Sadr-us-Sudur. Now these are very, very important because questions can be framed as per these terminologies. That's for this class. Next class we'll take up more about Iltutmish, and we'll be starting more on Balban. Thank you for listening. Have a nice day. Hello everyone, welcome to an academy. You are listening to a course, Comprehensive Understanding of Delhi Sultanate, Bahmani Kingdom and Vijayanagara Empire, and you're listening to the lesson 3, which is a contribution of Iltutmish and Age of Balban. This course is presented to you by Nithin Kunneparambil, that would be me. As you know, the course on an academy are free of cost, so please do contribute if you think that the course are of great interest for you. It really helps to motivate us as well. And you can also follow me in the link given here. Okay, now let's come to Iltutmish. The last lesson that we are seeing, we spoke about Iltutmish, his Iqtidari system, the nobility that he got. But then we didn't speak about the contributions of Iltutmish. If you notice here is a point where we are going to discuss that. First, he introduced something called as the new coinage in India. He introduced two different coins. One is Tanka, the other one is Jeetal. Tanka is a silver coin. Jeetal is a copper coin. Can you tell me when was rupee be introduced in India? Which year it is? Or rather, which king it is? Okay, the answer would be Sher Shah Suri. This is coming around like 300 to 400 years later. So till then, this was very common in India, Tanka and Jeetal. He also built two colleges whose name was Nasriya Madrasa and Musiya Madrasa. He also constructed wells, the Baolis of Delhi. They're very famous, right? The sulfur wells of Delhi. So they are Gandaki Baoli, House is Shamshi. Also, you have something called as House Khas, where IIT stands, right? That was built by Alauddin Khalji though. Anyways, the most important thing which was constructed was the Qutub Minar. Remember, it was initiated by Qutubuddin Aibak to commemorate Qutubuddin Bhaktiar Kaki. But as you remember, Qutubuddin Aibak met with a tragic death and he died in 1210. So somebody has to build it, right? And that work was completed by Iltutmish. So that again stands as a victory of Turkish invasion in India. Okay. We also spoke about this nobility who came from outside, the urbanized nobility who came from the West. Now think about it. What is their role going to be in India? We spoke about Chalisa, the Turkani Chahalgani. They are the nobles, the feudal lords, and they are called as Umra. Okay, the nobles or the feudal lords are called as Umra. But this Umra didn't come alone. They came with the baggage, which is the religious groups, and they were called as Ulema. If you have a bit of knowledge of Quran or Islam, you'd understand that one of the main principles of Islam, what Islam tells its believers is that seek knowledge. Knowledge in Arabic means ilm. It is called as ilm. A person who seeks it is called as alim. And plural of alim is called as ulema. So ulema simply means the religious scholars. Okay, fine. So you have umra and ulema. So these are two forces which are constantly influencing Sultan. If the Sultan is smart enough, he'll know that umra and ulema should be kept at a place where they deserve. But, so all the successful sultans like your Iltutmish, Balban, then you have Alauddin Khalji, then you have Mohammed Bin Tughlaq. All these people really understood it, so they kind of controlled it very properly. But there were some of them like Naziruddin Shah, they couldn't control it properly. So now you understand. Now the whole point is that Chalisa or the Umra or Ulema all became super important. They became a formidable force to be reckoned with in the courts of the Delhi Sultans. Okay. Now, with this in mind, let's understand what happened when Iltutmish died. Lot of politics in his court. Now, Iltutmish wanted his daughter, Rasia Sultana, to be his heir. Now, think of this time. Even now, we have the women reservation bill in the parliament. It's stuck for like ever. We say women's condition is so pathetic in India. To an extent, and rightly so, isn't it? But here is a king who thought his daughter, Razia Sultana, is much more smarter than his sons. See, very interesting indeed, right? So medieval, in strict sense, is not that medieval indeed. Anyways, so Chalisa made a spoiler game here because Razia, after death of her father, ruled Delhi from 1236 to 40, whereafter she's killed. Then comes a puppet king. His name is Nazaruddin Shah, and his detail is available in this book called as Tabqat-e-Nasri. We'll talk about it when we talk about the sources a bit later. So Naziruddin Shah ruled Delhi from 1246 to 1266. That means 20 years. But then he was just a puppet king. The de facto ruler was Ghiyasuddin Balban. That is his wazir. Wazir is what? Wazir is the prime minister, right? So Ghiyasuddin Balban rules the throne of Delhi. In the name, even though Naziruddin Shah was the king, the de facto ruler was Ghiyasuddin Balban. Now Balban, again, Naziruddin Shah somehow dies of poisoning. Everybody thought it was Balban, but then without any question, Balban becomes the next king. So he rules for another 20 years. Now totally you have 20 years of Naziruddin Shah and 20 years of Sultan himself, Balban himself. That means 40 years you have one king who's ruling Delhi. So you can see the influence that he would have had, right? Okay, now let's see what is happening to Balban. So before that, let's understand who Balban is. What is Balban? What sort of person was he? So I have this weird way of connecting things. So I let me tell it to you. If it makes sense, please do take it. Otherwise, please do ignore it. So think of the name Balban. Bal bole to kya? Bal is strength, and ban bole to you have to curtail it. So the one who suppressed the strong ones. That is exactly who Balban was. He knew that this Chalisa is going to do a very big spoiler game for him because he came from a very humble background. He didn't have a royal blood to claim and all. So he, in fact, killed a lot of Chalisa. All this Umrah, he really knew how to control them. Also, because he came from a humble background, he also sent Mansur to Khalifa. You remember in the previous case how Iltutmish had sent Mansur? Similarly, Balban also sends Mansur to Khalifa. Okay, but then he was a very, very different person. As in, he was very well disciplined. He has like a strong administrative background as the wazir of the Sultan, Naziruddin Shah, right? So now nobody could smile in front of him. Nobody could sit in front of him. He also introduced something called as sajda and pabos, which is the prostrating in front of the king or kissing king's feet. So these were all things which Balban introduced. So see how khadus person he was. He was like very tough man to deal with, right? Now let's push it a bit further and see what kind of person he was. Now think of a person who came from stables, who's like from a very, very humble origin. he'll obviously have a lot of inferiority complex. That's but natural. So this kind of a complex was always there with Balban. So instead of getting rid of his humble background in a medieval age like that, he had claimed that he has close relationship with Afrasia dynasty. Now, what is Afrasia dynasty? Afrasia dynasty is something in the Islamic world that has a very mythical value. In fact, he named his sons and grandsons based on the mythical Afrasian princes. His name was like Kayamar, Kaikabad. These are all the names of the mythical Afrasian princes. Also, he assumed the title Zil-e-Lahi. Even Akbar has this title, I suppose, isn't it? Zil-e-Lahi means the shadow of God. That means the divine theory of kinship was promulgated by Balban himself. But the biggest achievement of the Balban's era is the consolidation of empire. The Sultan didn't go anywhere. Rather, he stood there and he controlled the whole empire. So whichever land Iltutmish has got, he consolidated all these land into one single administrative unit and made it a very fine empire. Now let's see the major events in Balban's era. The first one is expansionary rule that we saw just now. He just consolidated the empire. Next important thing was the border management. He understood that Mongols are a very dangerous force. So what he did, he built a lot of forts and he put soldiers in the western border. That means he's trying to secure his border. Foreign policy, when you see, there's this person called as Halu Khan. He had killed the caliph. The same caliph, Khalifa whom Balban had sent money and as the Mansur, right? So even though his ulema was against him making peace with the Halu Khan, he did it. He also in Haryana, there were Mewatis who were plundering and looting all this place. He established kotwals, thanas. Anyways, the king also lived in Delhi and never left Delhi. So this is about Balban. I think you would have enjoyed listening to it. I'll come with the next series of lecture with the Khalji Revolution. Till then, it's bye from me. Have a nice day. Thank you. Hello everyone, welcome to an academy, and here we are back again with yet another lesson, that is the Khalji Revolution of the course Comprehensive Understanding of Delhi Sultanate, Bahmani Kingdom and Vijayanagara Empire. The course is presented to you by Nithin Kunneparambil, that would be me. And as you know, the courses on an academy are absolutely free, but then if you want to give a small recognition to us, the people who work hard to teach you, you're free to do that by clicking the contribute button. You can also follow me in this particular link. Okay, now before we start, let us have a quick recap. What had happened? Now you have 1206, Muhammad Ghor who is dying, and then Qutubuddin Aibak who is ruling the Delhi from 1206 to 1210, and then Iltutmish take over. Then 26 years he is ruling Delhi. Then you have a weak ruler. His name is Naseeruddin Shah. Balban is ruling as a de facto wazir here, and then 20 direct years by Balban. So totally you have 40 years of Balban. And that's what happened here. And now let's come back. What happened after Balban dies? Now the same politics everywhere in the world, if you see, when a powerful ruler dies, then there's an utter confusion. What is going to happen? Who's going to be the next king? Stuff like that, right? Now you have a strong one who's going to emerge victorious. In this case, it was the commander of the army who became the next sultan, and hence it was called the Khalji Revolution. Now, why do you call this Khalji Revolution? Why do you say something is a revolution? Why do you say industrial revolution, American Revolution? Some sudden change should happen, isn't it? So let's see, why is it called as a revolution, whether it's drastic enough. So first thing is that it is not just the dynasty, but the whole polity underwent a change. Now, why is that? Khaljis were not pure Turks. At least that was a perception. The others, the Mamluks, never considered Khalji as a pure Turk. And up till then, the monopoly of the state power was with the Turks. But here, Khaljis proved them wrong. And we'll see in the coming lectures how Tughlaqs also cement that fact that the state power is not a monopoly of Turks. That's the first point. The second point is, you saw how Iltutmish or how Balban, they consolidated their power in the Gangetic Plain, which is that Sindh to Bengal, Vindhyas to Himalaya. But this, for the first time, the expansionary policy is going to happen under Alauddin Khalji, and even more so after Alauddin Khalji. Also, you have a lot of administrative experiments which Alauddin Khalji is going to take up on. For example, the revenue administration is going to change, the market control policy is going to change. So a lot of new stuff which is going to come. So in a whole, if you see, in a matter of just like 10, 15 years, you have a very different kind of administrative setup which is going to come. So in it is very safe to call it as a revolution. Now, also, this Khaljis, they never believed in power centers. Think about how Mamluks did it. Think about how Iltutmish did it. Iltutmish spoke about the ulema, the umrah, all of them coming together. Chahalgani, it was constituted by Iltutmish himself. How Balban also controlled, and in some way he also respected it, right? Though he controlled it, he also respected it. But here, Khaljis, they never believed in power centers. That means they could act above ulema or umrah. So that is a good thing about the Khaljis. Now let's see who was the first Khalji ruler. He was a Jalaluddin Khalji. So if you where do we find the source to understand Jalaluddin Khalji? That is from this source called as Tariq-e-Firozshahi. It is written by this person called as Ziauddin Beruni, and it is not a state sponsored. So that means you can trust most of the thing which is written here. And till Naziruddin Shah, we had this book called as Tabqat-e-Nasri. We spoke about it earlier. Also, Amir Khusro lived in this era. That means he would also have written something great about Jalaluddin Khalji, and that work is Mufta'ul Futuh. Sorry, it's a spelling mistake. It's Mufta'ul Futuh, where Amir Khusro has written about Jalaluddin Khalji. Also, he has this expansionary policy where he sends his nephew Alauddin Khalji beyond Vindhyas. Now, Alauddin Khalji, who is the nephew of Jalaluddin Khalji, invades Devgiri in the south, defeats this Ramachandra Deva, and also when he is returning back, he kills his uncle and he takes the throne himself. So from 1290 to 1296, for a rough 6 period, you have this king called as Jalaluddin Khalji. Got it? So who is the new king? Yes, the new king in the north. Yeah, that is Alauddin Khalji. He's the most celebrated ruler of medieval India. Probably Akbar could match him, but then he's done pretty cool stuff. We'll see one by one. His actual name was Ali Gurshap. That was his original name. His rule, if you see, it's from 1296 to 1316. That means roughly 20 years, isn't it? So he is known for groundbreaking reforms. What are the groundbreaking reforms? Military reforms, there is expansionary policy, there is market control policy, there is turn call policy, there is cultural contributions. There are a lot of stuff in which this 20 years has happened. So it is a revolution indeed. So let's take one of them and inspect what it is. So let's take up the first topic itself, which is the military reforms. If you see the military reforms of Alauddin Khalji, there was a constant fear of Mongols. If you see in India, if this is India, you could see this here is Himalayas, here the both areas here will be your oceans. So the only open point you'll have will be the Western Front. So what he did is that he made a permanent standing army in Delhi. So that means there are a lot of people who's going to live in Delhi, mainly soldiers. So all the soldiers has to be paid in cash, not in kind. Now imagine you're going to pay a certain amount of money to your soldiers. But what happens? Over a period of time, the inflation will push you to demand more money. So army people were constantly asking for more and more money. So we'll see what is going to happen after that in with respect to the market control policy. But just make sure that because of army coming to Delhi, there's a lot of problem which is going to come. And coming back to the military reform aspect of it, he organized all his militaries men into group of tens, group of hundreds, group of thousands. Earlier there were no decimal system that way. Also, there was a very big corruption which is happening in the system. Just think of each Iqtidar. Sultan goes to one Iqtidar and he sees there are a lot of horses and then there are a lot of men which is associated with it. Then he goes to a different Iqtidar. Then he finds different set of horses and different set of people. But assume there's corruption in the army. Then what would happen? The two Iqtidar will say, okay, today my Sultan is going to come and visit my place. Let me borrow a few horses and army men from you. And when Sultan comes to your place, I'll give it back. So Sultan really understood this particular corruption in the army. So that's why he introduced two concepts called as Dag and Hulia. What is Dag? Dag is the branding of horses, probably one sort of mark which should be maintained on horse, which would identify a horse uniquely. That means it cannot be reproduced somewhere else and can claim money for that, right? So that is called as dak. And hulia is the face description of a particular armament. So with which what Sultan tried to address was the corruption in the army. You're understanding me, right? So effectively, what happened was that Sultan could clearly monitor how many horses were there, how many army men were there with each iqtidar, and he could remunerate each iqtidar according to the army that he maintains. Okay, so if you see, this is not a point where it ends, because this has to be seen along with the market reforms, which will be coming in the next lecture. But make sure that you know army reforms was a key to the Alauddin Khalji's expansionary policy as well as his economic policy. Thank you for listening. Have a nice day. Hello, everyone, and welcome to An Academy. This is the course on comprehensive understanding of Delhi Sultanate, Bahmani Kingdom, and Vijayanagara Empire. And this is the lesson number 5, Policies of Alauddin Khalji. The course is presented to you by Nithin Kunneparambil, that would be me. As you know, the courses on An Academy are free, but you are free to contribute if you think the courses are helping you out. You can also follow me at the link given here. Okay, quick recap before we delve more into the Alauddin Khalji's policies. We had seen the post-Balban development, how confusion was there. We also spoke about the Khalji revolution. We also spoke about 2 important leaders of the Khalji dynasty. The first one is Jalaluddin Khalji, who brought about the Khalji revolution, and Alauddin Khalji, who's experimenting a lot of administrative instruments to govern the state better. Also, he was a very ambitious person. Last lecture, we had also spoken about the military reforms, how he feared the Mongols, how he also made a standing army to live in Delhi. Now, all the next coming things would be associated with this very point of military reforms of Alauddin Khalji. So let's first see the expansionary policy. Now, we should all understand that Alauddin Khalji was a very, very ambitious person. He wanted to leave a mark of himself on the history of India. That's exactly what he did. And for a king at that point in medieval India, what's the best thing to leave a mark? To build a very, very big empire. That's exactly what Alauddin Khalji has done. So let's inspect the expansionary policy of Alauddin Khalji. Now, we spoke about in 1299, he launches an attack on Gujarat, captures it. In 1301, he attacks Ranthambore fort. At that point of time, the Raja was Rana Hamir Dev, and Khusro has recorded women committing sati there. So this is one of the initial phases where you see, how can you link it with the Rajput identity and how women are treated in the Rajput society, how they would sacrifice themselves rather than being molested by an external enemy. So all of this has been properly recorded by Amir Khusro in his works. Also in 1303, Alauddin Khalji launches yet another attack on Chittor fort. At that point of time, the Raja was Raja Ratan Singh, and Khusro, after seeing the Chittor fort, said that it is as beautiful as the 7th heaven. What on earth is the 7th heaven? So according to Islam, there are different levels of heaven, it seems. The first one, second one, third one, and as it goes, the 7th one. The 7th one is called as Firdaus. You would have heard about the Firdausi silsila of this Sufi saints, right? Or the name Firdaus is very common. Usually in Kerala, we have a lot of houses which are named as Firdaus. It's a very common name here. So either way, Firdaus is the 7th heaven. Okay. And also, there is one beautiful work in Hindi which is written by Malik Muhammad Jaisi, and the book's name is Padmavat. It is a love story between Alauddin Khalji and Padmini. But then this cannot be taken in the face value, because this poem kind of suggests that Alauddin Khalji has attacked Chittor fort for Padmini, which might not be right, because this particular work was written 100 years later. So a historical validity of such a source should be contested, right? So effectively what you have seen is that now with this, Alauddin Khalji has secured the northern frontier, the northwestern frontier of his kingdom. Now, once he's safe with the northwestern portion, where can he go? Obviously to the deeper Indian subcontinent, and that is by crossing the Vindhyas and going all the way till south. Till south, it was not Alauddin Khalji himself who led the war. It was Malik Kafur. Malik Kafur was his lieutenant, his lieutenant. So he was also called as Hazar Dinari because it is said that Sultan had brought him from Gujarat for 1,000 dinars. But the very interesting portion to note is that he was a eunuch. What is a eunuch? Eunuch is more like a person whose gender is not confined to the male identity or female identity. So there's what we call as transgender. Now just pause for a minute and think of it. Here is the Sultan of Delhi, probably such a large empire which India is going to see, and the commander of that army is a eunuch. So I think probably in historically also, before colonial era, the transgenders were not looked down upon. So all that we see, the problem right now, could very well be a manifestation of a colonial past. Anyways, that's a story for a different day. But let's see what Malik Kafur achieved. Malik Kafur, first he raided Ramachandra, who was a Yadava king and whose capital was Devgiri in Maharashtra. So the first southern state is covered. Then he went to Kakatiya dynasty in Warangal, that is in Andhra Pradesh. Now I think it is in Telangana district, Telangana state. And the king's name was Pratapa Rudradeva. I think you would have also heard about, if you have read the NCRT speaks about few women rulers of India, and NCRT also speaks about Rudrama Devi. So Rudrama Devi was also of the same Kakatiya University, just correlated when you go. Also, you have this Veera Bellala III of the Hoysala dynasty in Dwara Samudra in Karnataka. Then you have Veera Pandya and Sundara Pandya of Pandya dynasties in Madurai in Tamil Nadu. So you see, except for Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, everything is covered. Why was Kerala left? I don't know the answer though. But anyways, the interesting thing is that Malik Kafur did an extensive raid on these in south, and he rather than combining it with the north, what he made as a very separate entity who would always pay tributes to the northern king. Right now, let's come to the revenue administration. In revenue administration, what is interesting to see is that land was measured, and instead of 33%, 1/3, which was the usual kharaj. Now, okay, let's pause for a minute and understand what kharaj is. Kharaj is the land revenue. According to Islam, there are 4 particular tax collection. One is kharaj, second one is khams. Khams is the war booty. Then you have jizya, which is the money collected from the non-Muslims, and you also have zakat. Zakat is the money that the Muslims give for the charity work. So anyways, kharaj, which was usually 33%, Alauddin Khalji made 50%. Now, how did he work? Now, he would send a person who would estimate the production after sowing the seeds, and he would collect half of that estimate. That was the revenue administrative changes that Alauddin Khalji had promised. Now, with this, he could crush the intermediaries. Now, think of this, like all these intermediaries being crushed, what will happen to Iqtidari? Iqtidari system slowly started to loosen up because of the centralized scheme, right? Okay, now that's with the administration. Now, always think about this. Why did Sultan need so much amount of like wheat or rice? 50%. Why would he need it? That's because you remember he has a very big army back in Delhi, which he has to feed. So because of that army, he also has something called as a market control policy. You remember how we had spoken about inflation being a very big problem for the army who was stationed in Delhi. So that's exactly what Alauddin Khalji tried to tie down. So what he did was he tied down the inflation. Literally from 1302 to 1306, there was absolutely no inflation, zero inflation in Delhi. How could he do that? Because he could do it by making sure that there will be one rate which the state announces, and at that rate the people have to sell it. Now, one obvious thing would be hoarding of the market of the goods. In that case, what the Sultan will do is that, you remember that 50% of kharaj that he collects, that he'll open and he give it to the mandi, right? So that means again the food is plenty. So which obviously means that the people who have been hoarding it, the rice or the cereals, they have to give that money, give the cereals or their goods back into the market. So with which he is able to control the black market and he also helped how hoarding was eliminated. Also, he made extensive facilities for the traders. Traders was Banjaras. So this was a question for this year's prelims, right? And also, he made two provisions. One is Shana e Mandi. Mandi means a market. So these are the people who are officials from the government who would go and inspect all this mandis, which is the markets. But also the Shana e Mandi could be corrupt. So instead of that, he made some other, sorry, the spelling mistake. It is Munhia. So Munhia are the spies in the market who would check whether Shana e Mandi is going wrong. So these are the absolutely brilliant market policies that Alauddin Khalji had framed. I think you guys loved listening to it. Have a nice day. I'll see you in the next lecture. Thank you. Hello everyone. Welcome to an academy. You're listening to a course on comprehensive understanding of Delhi Sultanate, Bahmani kingdoms and Vijayanagara Empire. This is lesson 6, the turncoat policy and the cultural contribution of Alauddin Khalji. This course is presented to you by Nithin Kunneparambil, that's me. You already know the course fee is nil for an academy. However, if you wish to make a volunteer contribution, please click the contribute button. You can also follow me in the address given here. Okay, before we delve into the topic, let's have a small recap of what had happened. We had spoken about how Alauddin Khalji had come to power, his military reforms, his revenue reforms, his conquest details, and his market control policy. He was a very, very ambitious person, and the state policy of Khalji was a total disregard of power centers, isn't it? Now, let's discuss yet another very important policy of Alauddin Khalji, which is called as the turncoat policy. Now, what do you mean by turncoat policy? This was a plan with which Alauddin Khalji wanted to control the Umrah. Now, who are the Umrah? Umrah are the feudal lords. As we saw, the Delhi Sultanate's court witnessed two particular forces. The first one was ulema, the religious leaders, and second one was the Umrah, the feudal lords. Now, Alauddin Khalji was a very smart autocratic ruler, so he really didn't want any other external influence in his decision making. So what he did was made them poor by cutting down their iqtidari system. You do remember how he appointed a lot of people to collect the revenue from the farmers directly. So that was a direct assault on the iqtidari system, hence by rendering the iqtidars poor. Also, he understood that how does the Umrah conspire against the Sultan? That's basically because of the social gatherings. Whenever social gathering happens, a lot of people of Umrah come together and then they discuss about different policies of Sultan and then develop a tendency against the Sultan. So he understood the basic cause for all of this is the social gathering. So that's why he put a blanket ban on the social gathering when it comes to Umrah. Also, he banned the marriages between Umrah family without the consent of Sultan. So you would really know what is happening. How does a policy get strengthened? Because when the two different families of Umrah come together, and the best way to come together is the political marriages. This happens even till date, isn't it? So it's no surprise that it happened during the age of Alauddin Khalji. Okay, now that's about the turncoat policy. Now let's discuss about the cultural contribution of Alauddin Khalji. The first one, needless to say, would be Alai Darwaza. It's the second true arch in India. It's made in shape of a horseshoe. And a few others to name is the Jamaat Khana Mosque, the Siri Fort, the Alai Minar. If you're going to visit the Qutub Minar, you would have seen a big version of Qutub Minar which is incomplete. That's the Alai Minar. Also, he made something called the House-e-Ala. Now, this House-e-Ala was later rebuilt into House Khas. This is the place in Delhi where IIT Delhi is located. And this House-e-Ala was converted into House Khas by Feroz Shah Tughlaq. So these are the contributions of Khalji. Now, let's do a small character sketch of Alauddin Khalji. We have seen he has controlled the Umrah. We have seen he had controlled different aspects of the army. He had changed the revenue system, totally bringing about a revolution in the Delhi Sultanate. But let's see what kind of a person he is. And this is very evident from what he said. He said once, "I don't know what awaits me on Judgment Day." So this sounds more like a person who's totally dedicated to the work that he does. So that's about the character sketch of Alauddin Khalji, a very smart and able administrator who could translate his thoughts into actions and meet his ambitious targets in a very stipulated amount of time. Now, since we're talking about Khaljis, a discussion of history of Khalji is never complete without discussing Amir Khusro. Amir Khusro is so famous that his quotes are even used almost every language in India and abroad. The most interesting one being Gar firdaus ruhe zami ast hami asto hami asto hami ast, which means is दुनिया में अगर कोई जन्नत है वो यही है वो यही है वो यही है. So this was said by Amir Khusro himself. He was the disciple of the Sufi saint Nizamuddin Aulia. He had served under 5 sultan. Why do you think he lived so long? No, that's not the reason. The reason is that all the kings were short-lived. He is also called a Tutiye Kind, which means the parrot of India. He had invented 3 ragams, which is called as Yaman, Gora and Sanam. Though controversial, it is said that he is the inventor of sitar as well. The Qawwali style of Sufi was also patronized by him. He is believed to be the first Urdu poet as well. So that's about Amir Khusro for you, a very multidimensional person, a historian, artist, and whatnot, right? Now we pass on to the next important person before we wrap up the Khalji dynasty, and that would be the Mubarak Khalji. Now, Alauddin Khalji died on the year 1316, and that gave the way to Mubarak Khalji. Mubarak Khalji, interestingly, had revoked all the restrictions imposed by the Khaljis. He abolished the turncoat policy. He had abolished the dag and chahara. Chahara is also called as hulia, with which Alauddin Khalji had come up with a new system of military administration. He had reinstated the Iqtidari system. He had done away with the market control. And he also declared that he himself was the caliph. This was the action which ruined the games for Khaljis. And there comes the end of Khaljis. Okay, that's it for this lecture. I'll meet you in the next lecture. Thank you for listening. Have a nice day.